a WikiVidi documentaries production. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Enjoy. Barbra Streisand. Barbra Joan Streisand, known professionally as Barbra Streisand, is an American singer, songwriter, actress, and filmmaker. In a career spanning 6 decades, she has achieved success in multiple fields of entertainment and has been recognized with 2 Academy Awards, 10 Grammy Awards including the Grammy Lifetime Achievement Award and the Grammy Legend Award, 5 Emmy Awards including 1 Daytime Emmy, a special Tony Award, an American Film Institute Award, a Kennedy Center Honors Prize, 4 Peabody Awards, the Presidential Medal of Freedom, and 9 Golden Globes. She is among a small group of entertainers who have been honored with an Emmy, Grammy, Oscar, and Tony Award, though only 3 were competitive awards, and is one of only 2 artists in that group who have also won a Peabody. After beginning a successful recording career in the 1960s, Streisand ventured into film by the end of that decade. She starred in the critically acclaimed Funny Girl, for which she won the Academy Award and Golden Globe Award for Best Actress. Her other films include The Owl and the Pussycat, The Way We Were, and A Star Is Born, for which she received her 2nd Academy Award, composing music for the love theme, Evergreen, the first woman to be honored as a composer. With the release of Yentl in 1983, Streisand became the first woman to write, produce, direct, and star in a major studio film. The film won an Oscar for Best Score and a Golden Globe for Best Motion Picture Musical. Streisand received the Golden Globe Award for Best Director, the first woman to win that award. Streisand is one of the best-selling recording artists of all time, with more than 68.5 million albums in the US. And with a total of 150 million albums and singles sold worldwide, making her the best-selling female artist among top-selling artists recognized by the Recording Industry Association of America, the RIAA. And Billboard recognized Streisand as holding the record for the most top 10 albums of any female recording artist, a total of 34 since 1963. According to Billboard, Streisand holds the record for the female with the most #1 albums. Billboard also recognizes Streisand as the greatest female of all time on its Billboard 200 chart, and one of the greatest artists of all time on its Hot 100 chart. Streisand is the only recording artist to have a #1 album in each of the last 6 decades, having released 53 gold albums, 31 platinum albums, and 14 multi-platinum albums in the United States. Family. Barbra Joan Streisand was born on April 24, 1942, in Brooklyn, New York, the daughter of Diana and Emanuel Streisand. Her mother had been a soprano singer in her youth and considered a career in music, but later became a school secretary. Her father was a high school teacher at the same school where they first met. Streisand's family was Jewish. Her paternal grandparents emigrated from Galicia, and her maternal grandparents from the Russian Empire, where her grandfather had been a cantor. Her father earned a master's degree from City College of New York in 1928 and was considered athletic and handsome. As a student, he spent his summers outdoors, once working as a lifeguard and another hitchhiking through Canada. He'd try anything, his sister Molly said. He wasn't afraid of anything. He married Ida in 1930. 2 years after graduating, and became a highly respected educator with a focus on helping underprivileged and delinquent youth. In August 1943, a few months after Streisand's first birthday, her father died suddenly at age 34 from complications from an epileptic seizure, possibly the result of a head injury years earlier. The family fell into near poverty, with her mother working as a low-paid bookkeeper. As an adult, Streisand remembered those early years as always feeling like an outcast, explaining, "Everybody else's father came home from work at the end of the day. Mine didn't." Her mother tried to pay their bills, but could not give her daughter the attention she craved. "When I wanted love from my mother, she gave me food," Streisand says. Streisand recalls that her mother had a great voice and sang semi-professionally on occasion, in her operatic soprano voice. During a visit to the Catskills when Streisand was 13, she told Rosie O'Donnell she and her mother recorded some songs on tape. That session was the first time Streisand ever asserted herself as an artist, which also became her first moment of inspiration as an artist. She has an older brother, Sheldon, and a half-sister. The singer Rosalind Kind, from her mother's remarriage to Louis Kind in 1949. Rosalind is 9 years younger than Streisand. Education. Streisand began her education at the Jewish Orthodox Yeshiva of Brooklyn when she was 5. There, she was considered to be bright and extremely inquisitive about everything. However, she lacked discipline, often shouting answers to questions out of turn. She next entered public school '89 in Brooklyn, and during those early school years began watching television and going to movies, watching the glamorous stars on the screen. She was soon entranced by acting and now hoped someday to become an actress, partly as a means of escape. "I always wanted to be somebody, to be famous, get out of Brooklyn." Streisand became known by others in the neighborhood for her voice. With the other kids, she remembers sitting on the stoop in front of their apartment building and singing, "I was considered the girl on the block with the good voice." That talent became a way for her to gain attention. She would often practice her singing in the hallway of her apartment building, which gave her voice an echoing quality. She made her singing debut at a PTA assembly, where she became a hit to everyone but her mother, who was mostly critical of her daughter. Young Streisand was invited to sing at weddings and summer camp, along with having an unsuccessful audition at MGM Records when she was 9. By the time she was 13, her mother began supporting her talent, helping her make a 4-song demo tape, including "Zing," "Went the Strings of My Heart," and "You'll Never Know." Although she knew her voice was good and she liked the attention, becoming an actress was her main objective. That desire was made stronger when she saw her first Broadway play, The Diary of Anne Frank, when she was 14. The star in the play was Susan Strasberg, whose acting she wanted to emulate if ever given the chance. To help achieve that goal, Streisand began spending her spare time in the library, studying the biographies of various stage actresses such as Eleonora Duse and Sarah Bernhardt. In addition, she began reading novels and plays, including some by Shakespeare and Ibsen, and also on her own, studied the acting theories of Konstantin Stanislavski and Michael Chekhov. She attended Erasmus Hall High School in Brooklyn in 1955, where she became an honor student in modern history, English, and Spanish. She also joined the freshman chorus and choral club, where she sang with another choir member and classmate, Neil Diamond. Diamond recalls, "We were 2 poor kids in Brooklyn. We hung out in the front of Erasmus High and smoked cigarettes. The school was near an art movie house, and he recalls that she was always aware of the films they were showing, while he wasn't as interested." During the summer of 1957 she got her first stage experience as a walk-on at the Playhouse in Malden Bridge, New York. That small part was followed by a role as the kid sister in Picnic and one as a vamp in Desk Set. She returned to school in Brooklyn, but never took dramatic arts classes, preferring instead to gain some real-world stage experience. To that end, in her second year, she took a night job at the Cherry Lane Theatre in Greenwich Village helping backstage. When she was a senior, she rehearsed for a small part in Driftwood, a play staged in a Midtown attic space. Her co-star in Driftwood was Joan Rivers. At age 16, she graduated from Erasmus Hall in January 1959, and despite her mother's pleas that she stay out of show business, she immediately set out trying to get roles on the New York City stage. After renting a small apartment on 48th Street, in the heart of the theater district, she accepted any job she could involving the stage. And at every opportunity, she made the rounds of the casting offices. Career beginnings. At 16, then living on her own, Streisand's youth and ambition worked in her favor. But she lacked a mature woman's physical features which were needed for serious female roles. She therefore took various menial jobs to have some income. At one period, she lacked a permanent address, and found herself sleeping at the home of friends, or anywhere else she could set up the army cot she carried around to save on rent expense. When desperate, she would return to her mother's flat in Brooklyn for a home-cooked meal. However, her mother would be horrified by her daughter's gypsy-like lifestyle, wrote biographer Karen Swenson. and again begged her to give up trying to get into show business. But Streisand took her mother's pleadings as even more reason to keep trying. "My desires were strengthened by wanting to prove to my mother that I could be a star." She took a job as an usher at the Lunt-Fontana Theatre for the Sound of Music, early in 1960. During the run of the play, she heard that the casting director was auditioning for more singers, and it marked the first time she sang in pursuit of a job. Although the director felt she was not right for the part, he encouraged her to begin including her talent as a singer on her resume when looking for other work. That suggestion prodded Streisand to think seriously about a singing career, in addition to acting. She asked her boyfriend, Barry Dennen, to tape her singing, copies of which she could then give out to possible employers. Dennen had acted with her briefly in an off-Broadway play, but had no reason to think she had any talent as a singer, and she never mentioned it. Nevertheless, he agreed, and found a guitarist to accompany her. Dennen grew enthusiastic and he convinced her to enter a talent contest at the Lion, a gay nightclub in Manhattan's Greenwich Village. She performed 2 songs, after which there was a stunned silence from the audience, followed by thunderous applause when she was pronounced the winner. She was invited back and sang at the club for several weeks. It was during this time that she dropped the second A from her first name, switching from Barbra to Barbara due to her dislike of her original name. Nightclub shows and Broadway stage. Streisand was next asked to audition at the Bonsoir nightclub, after which she was signed up at $125 a week. It became her first professional engagement, in September 1960, where she was the opening act for comedian Phyllis Diller. She recalls it was the first time she had been in that kind of upscale environment. "I'd never been in a nightclub until I sang in one." Dennen now wanted to expose Streisand to his vast record collection of female singers, including Billie Holiday, Mabel Mercer, Ethel Waters, and Edith Piaf. His effort made a difference in her developing style as she gained new respect for the art of popular singing. She also realized she could still become an actress by first gaining recognition as a singer. According to biographer Christopher Nickens, hearing other great female singers benefited her style, as she began creating different emotional characters when performing, which gave her singing a greater range. Feeling more self-confident, she improved her stage presence when speaking to the audience between songs. She discovered that her Brooklyn-bred style of humor was received quite favorably. During the next 6 months appearing at the club, some began comparing her singing voice to famous names such as Judy Garland, Lena Horne, and Fanny Brice. Her conversational ability to charm an audience with spontaneous humor during performances became more sophisticated and professional. Theatre critic Leonard Harris, in one of his reviews, could already envision her future success. "She's 20. By the time she's 30 she will have rewritten the record books." Streisand never lost her desire to be a stage actress, and accepted her first role on the New York stage in Another Evening with Harry Stoons, a satirical comedy play in which she acted and sang 2 solos. The show received terrible reviews and closed the next day. With the help of her new personal manager, Martin Ehrlichman, she had successful shows in Detroit and St. Louis. Ehrlichman then booked her at an even more upscale nightclub in Manhattan, Blue Angel, where she became a bigger hit during the period of 1961 to 1962. Streisand once told Jimmy Fallon, whom she sang a duet with on The Tonight Show, that Ehrlichman was a fantastic manager, and still managed her career after 50 years. While appearing at Blue Angel, theatre director and playwright Arthur Laurent asked her to audition for a new musical comedy he was directing, I Can Get It For You Wholesale. She got the part of secretary to the lead actor businessman, played by then unknown Elliot Gould. They fell in love during rehearsals and eventually moved into a small apartment together. The show opened on March 22, 1962, at the Schubert Theatre, and received rave reviews. Her performance stopped the show cold, wrote Nickens, and she became Broadway's most exciting and youngest new star. Groucho Marx, while hosting The Tonight Show, told her that 20 was an extremely young age to be a success on Broadway. Streisand received a Tony nomination and New York Drama Critics Prize for Best Supporting Actress. The show was recorded and it was the first time the public could purchase an album of her singing. Television appearances, marriage, and first albums. Streisand's first television appearance was on The Tonight Show, then credited to its usual host Jack Paar. She was seen during an April 1961 episode on which Orson Bean substituted for Paar. She sang Harold Arlene's "Asleep in B." During her appearance, Phyllis Diller, also a guest on the show, called her one of the great singing talents in the world. Later in 1961, before she was cast in Another Evening with Harry Stoons, she became a semi-regular on Prime Minister East/Prime Minister West, a talk/variety series hosted by Mike Wallace and Joyce Davidson. In May 1962, Streisand appeared on The Gary Moore Show where she sang "Happy Days Are Here Again" for the first time. Her sad, slow version of the 1930s upbeat Democratic Party theme song became her signature song during this early phase of her career. Johnny Carson had her on The Tonight Show half a dozen times in 1962 and 1963, and she became a favorite of his television audience and himself personally. He described her as an exciting new singer. During one show, she joked with Groucho Marx, who liked her style of humor. In December 1962, she made the first of a number of appearances on The Ed Sullivan Show. She was later a co-host on The Mike Douglas Show, and also made an impact on a number of Bob Hope specials. Performing with her on The Ed Sullivan Show was Liberace, who became an instant fan of the young singer. Liberace invited her to Las Vegas, Nevada, to perform as his opening act at the Riviera Hotel. Liberace is credited with introducing Barbra to Western American audiences. The following September, during her ongoing shows at Harrah's Hotel in Lake Tahoe, she and Elliot Gould took time off to get married in Carson City, Nevada. With her career and popularity rising so quickly, she saw her marriage to Gould as a stabilizing influence. Her first album, the Barbra Streisand album in early 1963, made the top 10 on the Billboard chart and won 3 Grammy Awards. The album made her the best-selling female vocalist in the country. That summer she also released the second Barbra Streisand album, which established her as the most exciting new personality since Elvis Presley. She ended that breakthrough year of 1963 by performing one-night concerts in Indianapolis, San Jose, Chicago, Sacramento, and Los Angeles. Streisand returned to Broadway in 1964 with an acclaimed performance as entertainer Fanny Brice in Funny Girl at the Winter Garden Theatre. The show introduced 2 of her signature songs, People and Don't Rain on My Parade. Because of the play's overnight success, she appeared on the cover of Time. In 1964, Streisand was nominated for a Tony Award for Best Leading Actress in a Musical, but lost to Carol Channing in Hello, Dolly. Streisand received an honorary Star of the Decade Tony Award in 1970. In 1966, she repeated her success with Funny Girl in London's West End at the Prince of Wales Theatre. From 1965 to 1968 she appeared in her first 4 solo television specials. Singing. Streisand has recorded 50 studio albums, almost all with Columbia Records. Her early works in the 1960s are considered classic renditions of theatre and cabaret standards, including her pensive version of the normally up-tempo "Happy Days Are Here Again." She performed this in a duet with Judy Garland on The Judy Garland Show. Garland referred to her on the air as one of the last great belters. They also sang "There's No Business Like Show Business," with Ethel Merman joining them, beginning with "My Name is Barbara." Her early albums were often medley-filled keepsakes of her television specials. Starting in 1969, she began attempting more contemporary material, but like many talented singers of the day, she found herself out of her element with rock. Her vocal talents prevailed, and she gained newfound success with the pop and ballad-oriented Richard Perry-produced album Stony End in 1971. The title track, written by Laura Nyro, was a major hit for Streisand. During the 1970s, she was also highly prominent on the pop charts, with top 10 recordings such as "The Way We Were," "Evergreen," "No More Tears," which is reportedly still the most commercially successful duet, "You Don't Bring Me Flowers," and the main event, some of which came from soundtrack recordings of her films. As the 1970s ended, Streisand was named the most successful female singer in the US. Only Elvis Presley and the Beatles had sold more albums. In 1980, she released her best-selling effort to date, the Barry Gibb-produced Guilty. The album contained the hits, Woman in Love, Guilty, and What Kind of Fool. After years of largely ignoring Broadway and traditional pop music in favor of more contemporary material, Streisand returned to her musical theater roots with 1985's The Broadway album, which was unexpectedly successful, holding the coveted #1 Billboard position for 3 straight weeks, and being certified quadruple platinum. The album featured tunes by Rodgers and Hammerstein, George Gershwin, Jerome Kern, and Stephen Sondheim, who was persuaded to rework some of his songs especially for this recording. The Broadway album was met with acclaim, including a Grammy nomination for Album of the Year, and handed Streisand her 8th Grammy as Best Female Vocalist. After releasing the live album One Voice in 1986, Streisand was set to release another album of Broadway songs in 1988. She recorded several cuts for the album under the direction of Rupert Holmes, including On My Own, a medley of How Are Things in Glockamora, and Heather on the Hill, All I Ask of You, Warm All Over, and an unusual solo version of Make Our Garden Grow. Streisand was not happy with the direction of the project and it was scrapped. Only Warm All Over and a reworked, light FM-friendly version of All I Ask of You were ever released, the latter appearing on Streisand's 1988 effort, Till I Loved You. At the beginning of the 1990s, Streisand started focusing on her film directorial efforts and became almost inactive in the recording studio. In 1991, a 4-disc box set, Just for the Record, was released, a compilation spanning Streisand's entire career to date. It featured over 70 tracks of live performances, greatest hits, rarities and previously unreleased material. The following year, Streisand's concert fundraising events helped propel President Bill Clinton into the spotlight and into office. Streisand later introduced Clinton at his inauguration in 1993. Streisand's music career, however, was largely on hold. A 1992 appearance at an APLA benefit as well as the aforementioned inaugural performance hinted that Streisand was becoming more receptive to the idea of live performances. A tour was suggested, though Streisand would not immediately commit to it, citing her well-known stage fright as well as security concerns. During this time, Streisand finally returned to the recording studio and released Back to Broadway in June 1993. The album was not as universally lauded as its predecessor, but it did debut at #1 on the pop charts. One of the album's highlights was a medley of I Have a Love / One Hand, One Heart, a duet with Johnny Mathis, who Streisand said is one of her favorite singers. In 1993, the New York Times music critic Stephen Holden wrote that Streisand enjoys a cultural status that only one other American entertainer, Frank Sinatra, has achieved in the last half-century. In September 1993, Streisand announced her first public concert appearances in 27 years. What began as a 2-night New Year's event at the MGM Grand Las Vegas led to a multi-city tour in the summer of 1994. Tickets for the tour were sold out in under an hour. Streisand also appeared on the covers of major magazines in anticipation of what Time magazine named the music event of the century. The tour was one of the biggest all-media merchandise parties in history. Ticket prices ranged from $50 to $1,500, making Streisand the highest-paid concert performer in history. Barbra Streisand. The concert went on to be the top-grossing concert of the year and earned 5 Emmy Awards and the Peabody Award, while the taped broadcast on HBO was the highest-rated concert special in HBO's 30-year history. Following the tour's conclusion, Streisand once again kept a low profile musically, instead focusing her efforts on acting and directing duties as well as a burgeoning romance with actor James Brolin. In 1996, Streisand released I Finally Found Someone as a duet with Canadian singer and songwriter Bryan Adams. The song was nominated for an Oscar as it was part of the soundtrack of Streisand's self-directed movie The Mirror Has Two Faces. It reached on the Billboard Hot 100, and was her first significant hit in almost a decade, and her first top 10 hit on the Hot 100 since 1981. In 1997, she finally returned to the recording studio, releasing Higher Ground, a collection of songs of a loosely inspirational nature which also featured a duet with Celine Dion. The album received generally favorable reviews and once again debuted at number 1 on the pop charts. Following her marriage to Brolin in 1998, Streisand recorded an album of love songs entitled A Love Like Ours the following year. Reviews were mixed, with many critics complaining about the somewhat syrupy sentiments and overly lush arrangements. However, it did produce a modest hit for Streisand in the country-tinged If You Ever Leave Me, a duet with Vince Gill. On New Year's Eve 1999, Streisand returned to the concert stage, selling out in the first few hours, 8 months before her return. At the end of the millennium, she was the number 1 female singer in the US with at least 2 number 1 albums in each decade since she began performing. A 2-disc live album of the concert entitled Timeless, Live in Concert was released in 2000. Streisand performed versions of the Timeless concert in Sydney and Melbourne, Australia, in early 2000. In advance of 4 concerts in September 2000, Streisand announced that she was retiring from playing public concerts. Her performance of the song, People, was broadcast on the internet via America Online. Streisand's most recent albums have been Christmas Memories, a somewhat somber collection of holiday songs, and the movie album, featuring famous film themes, and backed by a large symphony orchestra. Guilty Pleasures, a collaboration with Barry Gibb and a sequel to their Guilty, was released worldwide in 2005. In February 2006, Streisand recorded the song, Smile, alongside Tony Bennett at Streisand's Malibu home. The song is included on Bennett's 80th birthday album, Duets. In September 2006, the pair filmed a live performance of the song for a special directed by Rob Marshall entitled Tony Bennett, an American Classic. The special aired on NBC November 21, 2006, and was released on DVD the same day. Streisand's duet with Bennett opened the special. In 2006, Streisand announced her intent to tour again, in an effort to raise money and awareness for multiple issues. After 4 days of rehearsal at the Sovereign Bank Arena in Trenton, New Jersey, the tour began on October 4 at the Wachovia Center in Philadelphia, continued with a featured stop in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and concluded at Staples Center in Los Angeles on November 20, 2006. Special guests Il Divo were interwoven throughout the show. The show was known as Streisand, the Tour. Streisand's 20-concert tour set box office records. At the age of 64, she grossed $92,457,062 and set house gross records in 14 of the 16 arenas played on the tour. She set the third-place record for her show of October 9, 2006 at Madison Square Garden, the first and second-place records, of which are held by her 2 shows in September 2000. She set the second-place record at MGM Grand Garden Arena with her December 31, 1999, show being the house record and highest-grossing concert of all time. This led many people to openly criticize Streisand for price gouging, as many tickets sold for upwards of $1,000. A collection of performances culled from different stops on this tour. Live in Concert 2006 debuted at number 7 on the Billboard 200, making it Streisand's 29th top 10 album. In the summer of 2007, Streisand gave concerts for the first time in continental Europe. The first concert took place in Zurich, then Vienna, Paris, Berlin, Stockholm, Manchester, and Selbridge, near Dublin, followed by 3 concerts in London, the only European city where Streisand had performed before 2007. Tickets for the London dates cost between £100 and £1,500, and for Ireland, between €118 and €500. The Ireland date was marred by issues with serious parking and seating problems, leading to the events being dubbed a fiasco by hot press. The tour included a 58-piece orchestra, In February 2008, Forbes listed Streisand as the #2 earning female musician between June 2006 and June 2007 with earnings of about $60 million. On November 17, 2008, Streisand returned to the studio to begin recording what would be her 63rd album, and it was announced that Diana Krall was producing the album. Streisand is one of the recipients of the 2008 Kennedy Center Honors. On December 7, 2008, she visited the White House as part of the ceremonies. On April 25, 2009, CBS aired Streisand's latest television special, Streisand, Live in Concert, highlighting the featured stop from her 2006 North American tour in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. On September 26, 2009, Streisand performed a one-night-only show at the Village Vanguard in New York City's Greenwich Village. This performance was later released on DVD as One Night Only, Barbra Streisand and Quartet at the Village Vanguard. On September 29, 2009, Streisand and Columbia Records released her newest studio album, Love Is the Answer, produced by Diana Krall. On October 2, 2009, Streisand made her British television performance debut with an interview on Friday Night with Jonathan Ross to promote the album. This album debuted at #1 on the Billboard 200 and registered her biggest weekly sales since 1997, making Streisand the only artist in history to achieve #1 albums in 5 different decades. On February 1, 2010, Streisand joined over 80 other artists in recording a new version of the 1985 charity single, We Are the World. Quincy Jones and Lionel Richie planned to release the new version to mark the 25th anniversary of its original recording. These plans changed, however, in view of the devastating earthquake that hit Haiti on January 12, 2010. And on February 12, the song, now called We Are the World 25 for Haiti, made its debut as a charity single to support relief aid for the island nation. In 2011, Streisand sang Somewhere from the Broadway musical West Side Story, with child prodigy Jackie Evancho, on Evancho's album Dream With Me. Streisand was honored as Musicare's Person of the Year on February 11, 2011, 2 days prior to the 53rd Annual Grammy Awards. On October 11, 2012, Streisand gave a 3-hour concert performance before a crowd of 18,000 as part of the ongoing inaugural events of Barclays Center in Brooklyn. Streisand was joined on stage by trumpeter Chris Botti, Italian operatic trio Il Volo, and her son Jason Gould. The concert included musical tributes by Streisand to Donna Summer and Marvin Hamlisch, both of whom had died earlier in 2012. Confirmed attendees included Barbara Walters, Jimmy Fallon, Sting, Katie Couric, Woody Allen, Michael Douglas and New York City Mayor Michael Bloomberg, as well as designers Calvin Klein, Donna Karan, Ralph Lauren, and Michael Kors. In June 2013 she gave 2 concerts in Bloomfield Stadium, Tel Aviv. Streisand is one of many singers who used teleprompters during their live performances. Streisand has defended her choice in using teleprompters to display lyrics and, sometimes, banter. In September 2014, she released Partners, a new album of duets that features collaborations with Elvis Presley, Andrea Bocelli, Stevie Wonder, Lionel Richie, Billy Joel, Babyface, Michael Bublé, Josh Groban, John Mayer, John Legend, Blake Shelton and Jason Gould. This album topped the Billboard 200 with sales of 196,000 copies in the first week, making Streisand the only recording artist to have a #1 album in each of the last 6 decades. It was also certified gold in November 2014 and platinum in January 2015, thus becoming Streisand's 52nd gold and 31st platinum album, more than any other female artist in history. In May 2016, Streisand announced the upcoming album Encore, Movie Partners Sing Broadway, to be released in August following a 9-city concert tour. Barbra, the music, the memories, the magic, including performances in Los Angeles, Las Vegas, Philadelphia, and a return to her hometown of Brooklyn. In June 2018, Streisand confirmed she was working on an album titled Walls. This album, a protest against the Trump administration, came out on November 2, 2018, just prior to the U.S. midterm election. A featured track in this album is "Don't Lie to Me." In the New York Times, she revealed that she wrote this song because Donald Trump's outrages were keeping her awake at night. Brought to you by WikiVidi Documentaries. Would you like